and welcome to Living the Tao.
I am Taoist Master Mikel Steenrod.
And I'm Morgan. Thank you for joining us on this walk. And today we're going to be discussing the personal difference, or the Taoist view on good versus evil, well, not versus, good and evil, and perhaps a new concept, neutrality.
What we really have to do is establish some context first, and we'll go with the historical context.
Okay.
And that is, Daoism was never built or designed to be a social control system. So it's not there to promote a certain social morality or even a certain society. And to do those things, as the sectarian movement started to develop early CE/AD, what happened was a greater integration of both Confucianism and Buddhism. So usually those become direct imports into certain sects, and we see it as the low temples emerge. So the temples that are public facing emerge. The Confucian morality was then taught within the low temples, and a lot of times you basically have Taoist sects that are effectively Buddhism without the Buddha.
Yeah.
So
and
there's almost no difference between the two. So.
I've seen that. And those systems were specifically to design society.
Well, the idea is to, well, how do we uplift or build society? And the fact is that Confucianism is simply better for state control. And many sects received lands and or support from the emperor. And so they were beholden to him. And those would be, from the esoteric classical standpoint, they would be more fringe on Taoism in the ancient era. So they would be out here somewhere. Whereas the classical...
Oh, as Taoism goes, on the scale of...
Yeah.
I see.
Because they're obviously combined with other religions.
Got it.
And partly you can argue for the public good or not for the public good, but that's obviously really, focused for doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we have to keep that in mind as we're delving into the process.
We're gonna
and dodging
go off to the side here. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a truck coming down the path.
Yeah.
Unusual occurrence. They're redoing the paths out here. Okay, so back to, since Taoism is not a tool for building a society, how does that make it, our approach to this, different?
Well, I mean, the reality is that it doesn't have a lot of the simple structures and definitions native to it that people expect from a social religion. The function of a social religion is to try to, if it's done, let's say, at its best, is to try in some fashion to uplift the mass of people and provide social services. And so you see that being done to varying degrees. Sometimes it's purely so that people can cultivate social power, and that's probably the great weakness of a social religion, is that the quest for power ultimately corrupts the religion. It's irrelevant as to what the religion is. As soon as it can be used for political purposes, the religion instantly decays, and it starts to move away from its core functions, which, if let's say, for the good of the people.
Yeah.
And you know, you can get into the argument of, well, if we're involved in blah blah blah, look at history, that's all crap.
Yeah.
It immediately, the quest for power corrupts anything that it touches.
Yeah.
And so now the Taoist has a quest for power, but it's not for social power at all. It's for spiritual, energetic, things that really have nothing directly to do with this structure of society. And so in many ways it's not a tool that applies well to society, and it's always stretched in order to try to meet those demands.
Right.
So
it's a personal journey. It's essentially a very personal experience.
well, if let's take one of the core premises. So one of the fundamental points, whether you're a reading Taoist or not a reading Taoist, is that everything that exists is constructed from the Tao. That's the fundamental premise of Taoism.
Right.
If that is not true, then a large part of Taoism becomes instantly not applicable. And actually at the advanced levels, it's something you would contemplate as a mind training puzzle. It's like, well, what if that isn't true?
Oh.
And then you can get into other things from there. But because everything is constructed from the Tao, a thing can either be more or less important than any other thing, because it's all made from the same stuff.
Right.
It came from it and it will return to it. And so what we have in between are just different manifestations or different stages of differentiation, so of being. You have become this thing at this particular time, but you will be reintegrated into the greater mass of things. So nothing can be better or worse than anything else.
Yeah, because it's all the same.
Right, and that creates a principle of equality. Within the Four Ascendant, this reasoning system is actually pretty formal, but it is also present as basic assumptions pretty much within every sect of Taoism, because it is also within the Tao Te Ching. It's just not completely stated as a single premise.
Yeah, it's not explicit. There's a lot of implicit messages in the Tao Te Ching.
Well, we could get into that by the nature of Taoist teaching methodology, but the reality is that you have, if you accept these two basic conditions,
Okay.
the fact that difference doesn't create a high or a low. For a judgment perspective, what you get is really equality at that point. And it's not equality among all humans, it's equality among all things across the entire spectrum of time.
Oh!
Because everything is composed of the same thing. And so that immediately creates an entirely different worldview.
Yes.
And so somebody could sit back and then try to stretch that into political realms, and that's a fine thought experiment, but that's not what Taoism was intended for. And as a basic component, religion should never be the foundation of law or politics, ever. It immediately corrupts religion. Very fundamental, not so much doctrinal statement, but a fundamental doctrinal statement. So
Okay.
and we could get into that discussion all by itself, and so usually when we have classifications of good and evil, we have classifications of one being better than the other.
Oh, yeah, good and evil is a judgment system. It's an equality. I never thought of it that way.
And even within the Tao Te Ching, I believe it's chapter 2, the statements that are in that list, if you're going through your copy, are all about not judging, because the judgment differentiation creates polarities that don't actually exist. It's not that there isn't a thing that is, it's not that you are not different than I am, it's that judging them creates a valuation that is false. It raises one above the other.
Because two things can't exist in the same value. I mean, that's just sort of human nature, right?
Well, it's characteristic of being human. And it may not be characteristic for anything else within the world, but you know, the Taoism, we always have to keep in mind, is human method for humans.
Right.
It's not Taoism for cats It's not Daoism for dogs. It's not Daoism for aliens. They would all have their own Daoism. You know, but perhaps it would be meowism or barkism. You know, whatever it happens to be. But it is a human methodology, so it's designed to be instructions to humans.
And apply to our biases. Oh, here comes another truck.
Okay. We're on the Park Speedway today.
I guess so.
Just walking down the major highway.
We don't usually have the trucks. Look both ways before you enter the road.
So if we're really going to address good and evil, the first thing that we have to do is to eliminate the perception of superiority of one over the other. And understand that the collected being or the differentiation, if it exists, can't be a difference of superiority or inferiority.
Oh.
And as soon as we challenge that basic concept, we challenge most of what people have in mind for good or evil.
Good or evil, yes.
As the other component is let's say you are evil. Part of the reason that you would be evil is you believe your position is superior. And it's a superior collection of solutions, it's a superior expression of power or of being. And that can seem odd for an individual that isn't evil, but it's clearly the perception that an evil person would have, that their position is the superior position.
Yes. I mean, that's another human nature thing, is that we all think that we are the better or the more right, right?
Yes. Well, what Daoism says is that not that there isn't a differentiation that's occurring. So not that you wouldn't possess a thing that is labeled as being good or is labeled as being evil. It's the valuation of one being superior to the other that's incredibly incorrect.
Okay.
And you can't really position yourself without eliminating that valuation.
And that's where neutrality comes in.
Right. Well,
Here's the only scenario. Okay.
the neutrality can be an individual, one that doesn't occupy one of the other two positions, but also is obviously not going to carry a perception that their position is superior, unless they do.
Oh.
Because Taoism as a whole values the neutral position. So neutral karmics, for example, are considered to be among the most powerful of all the karmics. And so that karmic pathway is the strongest pathway, and also the most rapid movement towards achieving, let's say, harmony with the Tao, of achieving sagecraft or of sagehood.
Because the Tao is naturally neutral?
Well, the Tao is all things.
Is everything.
And so people sometimes forget, if they're good biased, that, well, I mean, there's also a Tao for evil.
Yeah.
So
Hi.
there's also a Tao for neutral.
Let's
And
take
so-
a sidetrack here. Let's define some terms. Just good and evil and neutral.
The only definition that exists within Daoism that actually fits into those categories is karmic. There is no other pat definition. So,
And karmic in Taoist perspective is energetic.
it's purely energetic. So except for the sects that have shifted to a modern Buddhist definition system. So the reason I'm making that clarification is this.
Yeah.
Old school Buddhist karma was very similar to the Taoist model of karma. Both were completely energetic. They weren't moral judgments.
That's the trick, yeah.
Yeah, and now your actions affected the energy, but that's true of both Taoism and Buddhism. However, during the classical periods for both, they were very, very similar. And you can look this up, this isn't just me. And this is one of the reasons that when Buddhism first reached China, it was accepted as being, let's say, like a brother to Taoism. Differences, but you know, same genes.
Yeah, had some similarities. It fit into people's worldview.
Right. The key differences being that Buddhism's function for enlightenment was actually to achieve samsara. Didn't quite roll my R's correctly there, so if you speak Sanskrit, my Sanskrit's a little bit off. Or it should actually be samsara. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
And the function of that is you get out of the cycle of life and death. That is Buddhist enlightenment. That's its sole function. You are no longer going to be reincarnated.
But what that means might be a little bit different depending on what you believe. It's fascinating.
But with Taoism, you are here right now and your function is to be here. It is an art for the living.
Yes.
Your desire is to be here, not to leave here.
But in a way, that's getting out of the cycle too.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you would call the cycle.
Right.
So, otherwise, there wouldn't have been an immortality movement that spanned centuries. Why would you set out to be immortal in a thing that you wanted to leave? So
my gosh.
They're fundamentally opposed positions when it came to those things. But again, like brothers.
Yeah.
So, so initially the concept of karma, pretty much the same concept, even though they had different origins. For the Taoist, it came from dealing with the Tao over time. And it was a matter of like, well, these are the rules of karma and of achieving or acquiring ling, which is kind of the cumulative energetic force of an individual within their being.
Yes.
And, but different positions. And then over time, Buddhism changed to the current form of Buddhism, which has a series of acts, much more expansion of the gods, different things like that.
And karma is good or bad.
Right. And so it becomes much more of a moral judgment system rather than a simple energetic system.
Right.
But by that time, it had been around long enough where many sects basically decided, well, you know, in some ways, it's easier if we add this stuff in.
Right.
So why don't we just do that? Because Taoists have always been open to that possibility of sitting back, their ism seems to work in these areas. Why don't we try some integrating that? But keep in mind, sects come and go. So, and that's part of Taoism. It's like, you know, if it disappears after a few hundred years,
that's the proof.
Maybe it wasn't all that great to have around.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was simply for that time, not for the greater span of time.
You gotta be flexible.
Yeah. But if you're talking classical, the concepts are largely irrelevant when it comes to valuation, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist as a differentiation. I'm not sure if I can make that any simpler and still be accurate.
Yeah.
So good and evil exist. However, the values associated with them don't exist. They are what they are.
There are just different ways of going about gaining power.
Right. And if you were to look at it from a karmic position, evil karma, which, I mean, again, simple polar term layered on top of a more complex idea, is gained by engaging in destruction. So it's energy that's released by the destruction of other things. Whereas good karma is accumulated by joining things together, and there's an energetic release. Those things that are joined or broken are choice probabilities. So suddenly we get into something complex.
No, but it's almost like subatomic physics.
Well, it does follow the basics of like exothermic and endothermic. But in each one of those circumstances, there's a certain amount of karmic energy that's released. Evil is actually, in many ways, the faster pathway, because since everything is destroyed, it releases the totality of its energy.
Oh,
With good, a portion of energy is released whenever a union of choice probabilities come together. And that is released to, well, I mean, that's a long conversation, but
I can see, like, if you were collecting energy along the evil way, entropy is working along with you, right?
well, yeah, I mean, it's the difference between if you want, let's say, things to be really hot and you can just burn a house down, things get hot pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If you want things to be hot, but you can't burn a house down, what do you have to do?
You have to build a house.
You have to gather the supplies, gather a shelter, and, you know, build all those things up in order to have that work. And that's more effort and it's more time. And so if you look at the two, I mean, what's the easiest pathway? Burning stuff down.
More immediate pathway.
Yeah. Well, immediate.
Yeah, okay.
You know, the nature of karma is that.
Yeah, that was a judgment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, the nature of karma is that it actually doesn't work over the long term. It is actually all immediate, but that's a whole other in-depth. That's a separate conversation, which I think perhaps 4 people out of 1,000 would be interested in.
I know those 4 people, and they're listening to this right now.
And
all right,
everybody else would not care at all. So
where does neutral fit in? And why is it more powerful than building a house or burning down the house? If that metaphor goes on.
what a neutral is able to do, so there's a certain amount of energy that is stuck to all things. And when a good performs a good act, that energy is released at the points of where the two separate lines come together. When an evil does something, they destroy the lines and they release the energy that was stored there.
Okay, they reap the energy that the lines contained. Okay.
Right. However, there's also just energy sitting on the grid of choices that
That's
are there.
uncommitted.
Right. It just needs to be there. Nobody really understands why it's there. It just needs to be in the system.
Okay.
And again, we could go into technical speculation, but 3 people in 1,000 interested. Nobody else is.
That's you.
And what a neutral does is by their neutrality, they are able to walk across the net like a spider walking across the web, gathering all the energy they can possibly accumulate, as long as they don't destroy or disturb the web.
Oh, man.
And so effectively it's like a spider gathering dew. The spider can't shake the net, can't interrupt the net, but instead move in flow in harmony with the net.
Yes.
And as they do so, the dew just collects on them. And for that reason, they have available to them, regardless of what's going on, the greatest potential energy. And that just sticks to the person, and if they have modest skill, accumulates in them. If not, I mean, it'll just fall off. And that's why neutrality is able to achieve so much greater stuff. But the problem of it is that, again, if the neutral disturbs, what happens? All the energy is lost. It just drops off.
It drops off of them, not off the net.
No, off the net as well.
Oh, no.
In the immediate area that they are, because they've shaken the net.
So they could mess up their own.
Oh, most definitely. So it requires, in general, the highest skill internally, because you can't allow yourself to get pulled too far into anything else.
Does that mean you can't create and you can't destroy?
No, you can. And that's the other benefit of neutrality, is that neutrals can actually do a little bit of good and a little bit of evil, as long as they don't get pulled off of center pole. So.
Oh, okay. So you got a little flexibility, but you have to stay in the center pretty much. It's like balancing a teeter-totter or something.
Yeah, and I mean, if we start getting into the there's some basic math that goes with it, but as we start getting into that, suddenly the conversation requires pen and paper and stuff like that.
Okay, but I get the idea. And that's how I come up with a metaphor so that you can have a picture.
And some neutrals do prefer to just stay absolutely in the neutral position.
Wow.
And just spend their time gathering from the great Tao all around them.
Wow.
But some neutrals like to do things, so.
Yeah.
Which they can do as long as they don't polarize too far. Because of course they have the most karmic energy, so they can pull off the biggest things.
But they have to calculate that.
Yeah, it requires a bit more stuff.
They don't want to lose all their...
That is true.
Stuff.
And at a certain karmic level of accumulation, you can feel your gains and your losses. And so you start going back, you know, that was bad because now I'm weak.
Yes.
And, or that was good because now I am strong. You know, kind of a basic feedback system that
I
pops
definitely
up.
feel that.
So.
Does that, this may be a little spur here, but is Qigong essentially a neutral practice then? Meaning that you can become aware and collect ambient energy?
Well, I mean, I think with Qigong doesn't care what your polarization is.
Okay.
That's in a lot of ways, it's an easier level. That's why it's a separate sphere. So Karma belongs in the Tao sphere, Qigong belongs in the Qi sphere. And so I would say that the energy of Qi is much blinder. And I mean, you're essentially just drawing in ambient energy in order to store it within you as an individual. It's not really bound by any...
It's generic.
Right, it's not bound by specific rules of action or other things like that. So.
Got it. So, in a nutshell, how does good action, evil action, and neutral action impact me in my day-to-day life?
Well, I actually don't really know what you're asking. So,
I'm asking, is there a... We're going to take a hard right here, go back down in there, try to avoid some of this wind. I'm asking, is it a good idea to be aware of the good or evil or neutral nature of your actions
if you want to
make a better life?
If you want to accumulate karma, yes.
Which is a way of making a better life for yourself, right?
Well, at that point, you have more powerful choices and are able to self-direct. So a lot of times people's choices fail simply because, not because they're necessarily bad choices. You can make all the right decisions at the right times. But if you have no energy to charge that structure, nothing happens. The probabilities don't move, they don't favor you. That's why you can sit back and, I mean, if you're at a very low level of karma and there's even mild opposition to something that you're doing, even if everything that you do is correct, it will simply fail. And a lot of times people look at that as luck. And the thing is it's not luck. You're just trying to use more karma that you have.
Yeah. You're a little person trying to push a big truck and this...
Right, and the thing is that you have to start small, like you do with many things, and just build up your karmic strength. If you're always flip-flopping from one position to another through, let's say, if you want to call it creation and destruction and neutrality, what happens is that every time you flip-flop, you burn off the karma from your prior pole. And we are favored by engaging in and staying within the boundaries of a pole, because otherwise that energy is bled off.
Well, that would be a good reason to be aware of those characteristics, right?
Yeah,
so you can stick to one.
And the easiest way to do that is consistency in action. And so whatever your actions happen to be. So the instructions for an evil person are actually exactly the same as the instructions for a good person. And so if you get somebody that's like low-level evil and they're wondering why their evil plots are foiled all the time, the reason's very simple. They're inconsistent. Or they're not going in with enough input karma to pull off the choice that they want.
So it's that transition period from good to evil that it might not work out so well.
Well, yeah, you have that transitional period. You can also, let's say you're a minor henchman, if you're trying to do nefarious villain things,
Yeah.
you're just going to blow your energy every time you try to do one of those things. It has to be built up to the level that you need in order to achieve your outcome. And imagine if you went into a fast food place, a Mick whatever's,
Yeah.
and you wanted a chicken nugget.
Okay.
And let's say chicken nuggets are running at $5 for a pack,
Okay.
but you only have $2.
Okay.
So you go up and say, hey, I want a chicken nugget. And the person across the counter goes, okay, well, give me your money.
Yeah.
It's $5. You hand them $2. That's not enough to get a $5 pack of chicken nuggets, right?
And you don't get a refund.
Right. And here's the thing. They keep the $2 that you handed them.
Ugh.
You don't get it back. So, and that works for everybody. So you need enough input dollars in order to complete your transaction, or else you surrender those input dollars.
Okay, so that's what we can learn. Consistency on one pole, or right down the middle.
Or how to properly shop for chicken nuggets,
Yeah.
too.